The Almaza Tower Hotel shimmered under the scorching Dubai sun like a blade of gold. Inside, the marble floors glowed beneath chandeliers shaped like inverted galaxies, their crystals catching the desert light. It was a place where billion-dollar contracts were signed and broken, where power wore perfume and silence had a price tag. But that morning, silence was not golden. It was heavy, tense, breaking apart under the echo of raised voices. "Enough," thundered Sheikh Zayed al-Rahman, one of the Gulf's most powerful energy tycoons. His deep voice boomed through the grand conference hall, laced with fury and pride. His crisp white dish dasha swayed as he turned sharply from the negotiating table, his gold cufflinks flashing like twin daggers. The British delegation froze in their seats. The air felt like it might crack under the pressure. At the center of it all sat Ethan Clark, a polished man in his 40s, head of a London-based engineering firm, hoping to secure a landmark renewable energy partnership with Sheikh Zayed's conglomerate. His interpreter had just made the worst mistake of his career, translating shared equity as forfeited control. The Sheikh's face had gone still, the kind of stillness that came right before a storm. "You insult my honor," he said in Arabic, voice low and dangerous.
"Do you think I'm a fool?"
"That I would give my legacy away for your paperwork?" The interpreter, pale and sweating, stammered something about context, but it was too late. The Sheikh's advisors were already rising from their chairs. His right-hand man, Khalid al-Tayyib, whispered, "We should go, Your Excellency." Zayed's jaw tightened. "Yes, let's end this mockery." He turned on his robe flowing like a curtain closing on a failed show, and that was when the sound of a mop bucket squeaking across the marble floor broke the silence. Everyone's eyes turned. Near the far column, partially hidden by a giant indoor palm, stood Madison Cole, the hotel's housekeeping staff. 26 years old, brown skin, a name tag barely holding onto her uniform pocket, her hair tied back in a simple bun, a faint sheen of sweat on her forehead. She froze, realizing the entire room was staring at her. "Oh, sorry," she murmured, backing away, gripping her mop handle like a shield. She hadn't meant to interrupt a meeting that looked more like a throne room than a business session. Her morning shift had included this hall. "Just mop and leave quietly," her supervisor had said. But she had heard everything. Every tense pause, every misstep in translation, and every word the Sheikh had said because Madison wasn't just a janitor. Not really. The unspoken gift 3 years ago, Madison had arrived in Dubai chasing a dream that had vanished like a mirage. A scholarship promise from an NGO had collapsed after funding cuts. Her Arabic degree from the University of Ghana had meant little in the towering corporate world of the Gulf. So, she took what she could find: cleaning rooms, scrubbing marble, polishing brass, but she never forgot the language. Or its rhythm. It had been her father, a diplomat's translator before his passing, who had taught her that language was power. Words, he'd said, can open doors that titles cannot. So she listened. She learned. She cleaned rooms where CEOs whispered secrets and tycoons rehearsed negotiations, and in silence she practiced every word. That morning, when the Sheikh turned to leave, she felt that door closing. Not just for them, but for something bigger. A voice in her heart whispered, "Say it." Her body trembled. Her mind screamed, "Don't. You'll lose your job." But something stronger rose up, a pulse of dignity that refused to be quiet. She took one step forward, then another, the moment that changed everything. "Your Excellency," she said, softly, but in perfect Arabic. The words sliced clean through the noise. Every head turned. The Sheikh stopped mid-stride. His advisors froze. The interpreter's jaw fell open. Madison's mop clattered gently against the bucket. Her voice, unsteady, clear, echoed in flawless Gulf dialect. "They did not mean disrespect, sir." The English phrase was mistranslated. They only meant shared responsibility, not surrender. "Please, don't let a wrong word undo something right." For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Sheikh Zayed turned slowly, disbelief flickering across his sharp features. His dark eyes locked onto hers, studying her as though trying to fit the sight of a humble janitor with the voice that had just bridged a billion-dollar misunderstanding. "You speak my tongue?" he asked in Arabic, the question more a challenge than curiosity. Madison lowered her gaze respectfully. I learned from my father. He believed every language carries a soul, sir. A murmur spread through the room. The British delegation looked like statues. Ethan Clark whispered, "She's a staff member?" While Khalid exchanged a sharp glance with his master. Zayed's anger was faltering, curiosity creeping in to replace it. But before he could speak, the hotel manager, Mr. Rahman, a small man with too much perfume and too little patience, rushed in through the side door. "What is going on here?" he barked, spotting Madison. "You! Why are you speaking in this room? You're a cleaner, not a translator." Madison turned to him, her voice calm. "Sir, I only wish to— Enough!" he snapped. "You are dismissed." "This is not your place." Zayd lifted his hand slightly, a signal. The manager froze mid-rant. "She was only correcting an error," Zayed said, switching to English now, his accent rolling like desert thunder. "And she was right," Ethan blinked. "Sir, you mean—" "She said shared responsibility, yes?" Zayed's lips twitched, the faintest hint of amusement. "Your translator said forfeited control. I nearly tore up this contract for a ghost mistake." The manager's mouth fell open. The janitor he was about to fire had just saved a multi-million-dollar deal. Respect reborn, the sheikh stepped closer to Madison. She stood still, hands clasped, gaze steady but respectful. The room's hierarchy, billionaire, executive, janitor, had dissolved into something more human. "What is your name?" he asked. "Madison Cole, sir." "From where?" "Ghana." He nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. "And you learned Arabic there?" "Yes, sir. And later in Oman. My father worked there as a teacher." There was silence, a silence filled not with fear but with recognition. Zayed saw something rare, humility without submission, intelligence without arrogance. Then in Arabic again he said quietly, "Knowledge wears no uniform, Miss Madison. But courage always shines through the dust." He turned to Ethan. "Bring her a chair. She will translate for both sides," the manager gasped. "Sir, she's staff." "She's human," Zayed interrupted, his tone firm. "And right now the only one in this room who spoke truth." The sheikh's entourage obeyed. A chair was pulled out. Madison hesitated, her heart pounding. Her trembling hands brushed her apron. For the first time she felt the weight of her mop handle slip away, replaced by something far heavier. Respect. The language of dignity. For the next 2 hours, Madison sat beside two of the world's most powerful men, translating each phrase with clarity and balance, her voice rising with confidence. The tension melted, replaced by rhythm. Every correction she offered earned a nod. Every phrase bridged a gap. By noon, the once-broken deal was back on track. When the meeting ended, the sheikh rose. His advisors followed. Before leaving, he turned once more to Madison. "You saved them," he said. "And you saved me from my own pride." Madison blinked, unsure how to reply. "I only did what was right," Sayed smiled faintly. "That is what makes it rare." He motioned to his aide. "See that this woman is rewarded." Madison quickly shook her head. "Please, sir, I can't accept gifts. I only spoke because truth should not be silent." That answer, humble yet unyielding, drew a deep chuckle from the sheikh. "Then I shall remember your name instead. It will be worth more than gold." With that, he departed, his white robe sweeping like wind across marble. The room emptied. Madison stood alone. The mop leaned where she had left it, like a witness to history. Echoes in the halls by evening, whispers had spread through the hotel. The janitor who saved a deal. The black woman who spoke Arabic better than the interpreter. The sheikh bowed to her words. Some mocked. Some admired. But Madison didn't linger on the gossip. She changed into her plain clothes, tied her scarf, and walked home, her head high for the first time in months. Outside, the call to prayer floated through the city. She stopped for a moment on the bridge overlooking the water, the sunset painting the skyline gold. Her reflection shimmered in the river below, not as a janitor, not as a translator, but as someone who had finally been seen. She whispered to herself, "Words can clean what mops cannot." And somewhere deep in the sheikh's convoy that night, as desert wind brushed against tinted windows, Zayed al-Rahman thought of her voice again, steady, fluent, fearless, and smiled, because sometimes power doesn't come from wealth or title. It comes from truth spoken at the right time, by the one person nobody expected. 3 days had passed since that extraordinary morning in the Almaza Tower Hotel, yet the memory still pulsed through Madison Cole's mind like a vivid dream. She was back in her uniform, scrubbing the marble hallway floors under the humming air conditioning. Nothing about her routine had changed. Same gray cart, same lemon-scented disinfectant, same supervisor barking orders. Yet everything inside her had shifted. She had spoken truth in a room where her presence wasn't even supposed to be acknowledged, and a billionaire had listened. Every so often she wondered if it had even mattered. Maybe the sheikh had forgotten her the moment he stepped into his Rolls-Royce. Still, every time she wrung her mop, she heard her father's voice. "Madison, don't wait for people to hand you worth. Speak it." A knock at the staff dormitory. That evening, while Madison folded her work apron in her shared dorm room, a knock came at the door. She hesitated. Staff dorms never got visitors. Opening it, she found Khalid Al-Tayyib, the same tall, sharp-faced man who had stood behind Sheikh Zayed during the meeting. He looked oddly out of place amid the narrow, dim hallway. "Miss Madison Cole?" he asked, voice polite but firm. Her heartbeat quickened. "Yes, sir." He offered a small nod. "His Excellency Sheikh Zayed Al-Rahman requests your presence tonight." Madison blinked. "Mine? There must be a mistake." "No mistake," Khalid interrupted smoothly. "He remembers every word you said." Madison's fingers fidgeted on the fabric of her apron. "I'm just a janitor, sir." Khalid's gaze softened slightly. "Tonight you are his guest." The unexpected invitation, half an hour later. Madison stood in front of the Al-Rahman Tower, one of Dubai's most exclusive skyscrapers, a place she had only ever cleaned from the outside. A chauffeur opened the car door for her, and she followed Khalid through a glass lobby so grand it looked like a cathedral of light. The elevator doors slid open silently and they rose 70 floors without a sound. When they stepped out, Madison found herself in a penthouse that looked like a floating palace. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering night skyline. Gold accents shimmered on marble counters. The air smelled faintly of oud and sandalwood. Sheikh Zayed stood near the balcony, hands clasped behind his back, his white robe catching the soft light. When he turned, his expression was unreadable, calm, regal, assessing. "Madison Cole," he said. "You came." She bowed her head slightly. "You asked for me, sir." "I did." He motioned toward a seat opposite him. "Please sit." Madison obeyed, her palms slightly damp. Zayed sat as well, folding his hands. "I've seen many people in my life," he began. "Men with degrees, politicians with silver tongues, translators who can speak a dozen languages, but very few who understand respect in speech, the kind that comes from the heart." Madison didn't know how to reply, so she stayed silent. Zayed's eyes searched hers. "You corrected me in front of my advisors. You risked your job for accuracy. Why?" "Because truth matters, sir," she said softly. "Even if it comes from someone who mops floors." A faint smile tugged at his lips. Spoken like someone who refuses to let dust hide diamonds. He gestured to Khalid, who brought forward a slim envelope and placed it on the table. "I am opening a new cultural foundation," Zayed said. "A program for language and communication, to train our youth to see beyond accents and faces. I want you to join it." Madison's breath caught. "Join, sir?" "As an assistant coordinator," Zayed said. "You would help bridge languages, English, Arabic, and any others you know. It will not be easy, but you will learn. And you will teach." She stared at him in disbelief. "Sir, I don't have the qualifications for—" He raised a hand. "You have something better, integrity. The rest can be taught." Her heart pounded. "But what about my job at the hotel?" He tilted his head slightly. "Do you want to remain there forever?" Silence hung for a long moment. Madison lowered her gaze, her throat tight. The hotel had been survival, not destiny. Finally, she whispered, "No, sir." "Then this is your door," he said. "Walk through it." A test of humility before she could accept, Khalid cleared his throat softly. "If I may, Your Excellency, perhaps a short assessment, to ensure she can handle the responsibility." Zayed nodded thoughtfully. A fair point. He turned to Madison. "Khalid will give you a document, a real business letter in Arabic. Translate it into English, not word for word. Capture the meaning." Khalid placed the paper before her. The script was neat but formal, dense with technical and diplomatic phrasing. Madison took a deep breath and began. Her hands shook slightly, but as her eyes followed the lines, her mind steadied. She remembered her father teaching her the art of niyya, intent. Words were only messengers. The heart carried the truth. After 10 minutes, she finished. She read her translation aloud. When she reached the last line, the sheikh's eyes glimmered, the subtle nod of a man who had found what he was looking for. She understands tone, he said. Not just vocabulary. Khalid's skeptical expression softened into admiration. Zayed leaned forward. You start next week, Madison blinked. I can't believe this, and you should, he said. You earned it. The whisper of doubt. That night, as the car drove her back to the dorms, Madison stared out the window at the passing lights. Dubai shimmered, alive, dazzling, untouchable, and for the first time it didn't seem so far above her reach. Yet a whisper of fear stirred in her chest. What if she wasn't good enough? What if the sheikh's generosity turned to disappointment? What if people mocked her again? This time not as a janitor, but as an imposter. When she reached her room, her roommate Tarika, a lively Kenyan woman, gaped. Girl, where have you been? Management said you left with a limo. Madison gave a small, stunned laugh. You won't believe me if I tell you. Try me. When Madison explained, Tarika's jaw dropped. You mean the Sheikh Zayed al-Rahman? The one whose name's on half this city? Madison nodded slowly. Tarika clapped her hands together. Then, honey, your life just flipped. But Madison wasn't sure yet. Somewhere deep down, she still felt like that woman with a mop in her hand, standing at the edge of a world that might not truly let her in. The foundation begins a week later. Madison arrived at the Al-Rahman Cultural Foundation, dressed in a modest cream blouse and navy skirt. The building was sleek and modern, its walls lined with calligraphy that read, "Wisdom is the lost property of the seeker." Inside, the staff buzzed with energy. Madison was introduced as Assistant Coordinator Language Development. Some smiled politely. Others whispered behind her back, "Isn't she the janitor from Almaza Tower? Sheikh Zayed really hired her?" Madison kept her chin high, remembering her father's advice. Let them doubt. Then let your work answer. Her first assignment came from Khalid himself. We have a delegation visiting from Senegal, he explained. They need bilingual materials, Arabic and English. You'll manage the translations. Madison dove into the task, working late into the night. When fatigue crept in, she thought of her father's hands guiding hers over old Arabic books, the smell of coffee and paper ink in their small Ghana home. She smiled and kept writing. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, colleagues began to notice her quiet efficiency, her knack for catching nuances others missed. One morning, Khalid himself paused at her desk. You corrected the phrasing in that document? He asked. Yes, sir. The word used meant obedience. I changed it to cooperation. It fits the context better. He studied her a moment, then nodded. Good. Very good. An unexpected visitor one afternoon, as the office wound down. Madison was sorting papers when she sensed someone behind her. She turned and froze. It was Sheikh Zayed. Everyone in the room stood instantly. He waved them down gently. Please, continue your work. Then he approached Madison's desk, his steps measured. How are you finding the work? He asked. She rose respectfully. Challenging, sir, but fulfilling. That's what I hoped. He gestured toward the window overlooking the city. Do you know why I built this foundation? Madison shook her head. Because I spent half my life learning to be powerful, he said. But it took me 50 years to learn to listen. You reminded me of that. Madison's eyes softened. I'm honored, sir, he smiled faintly. Do not be honored. Be consistent. Before she could reply, his phone buzzed. He frowned slightly, stepping aside to answer. His tone darkened, clipped, tense. After a moment, he ended the call. Trouble? Madison asked carefully. He exhaled. A small misunderstanding with one of our French partners. They accuse us of miscommunication. Again. She hesitated, then said gently, Maybe I can help, sir. Zayed raised a brow. You speak French? A little, she admitted. Enough to understand where meaning bends. He studied her for a long moment, and then smiled. Perhaps your gift is larger than even I thought. New doors, new shadows that evening, Madison stayed late, helping draft a multilingual press release for the foundation. As she typed, she noticed something strange. An older employee named Farid, who had glared at her since her first day, watching her every move. When she met his gaze, he turned away quickly. Later, as she gathered her things, she overheard him muttering to another staffer, "A maid gets one lucky moment, and now she thinks she belongs here." The sheikh won't keep her long. The word stung, but she didn't respond. She simply smiled because she'd learned something powerful. People only throw stones when they see a light. Morning sunlight touched the rooftops of Dubai as Madison arrived early at the foundation office. The air was calm, but her mind wasn't. Something about yesterday's meeting kept echoing, a detail she couldn't name yet, like a word on the tip of her tongue. Inside, Yusuf was already waiting, his laptop glowing faint blue in the half-light. "I stayed late," he said quietly. "There's something strange in the community records." He turned the screen toward her. Some names on the registration list had been moved to other districts. Others appeared twice, and a few had vanished altogether. "No money missing," Yusuf added. "But the pattern feels planted." Madison leaned closer. She saw one name repeated under 3 different roofs, and remembered the mysterious man who'd asked too many questions during the community sessions. "Let's verify everything from the ground up," she said. "Names, addresses, face to face." Yusuf nodded, already printing copies. Tea, chairs, and truth by noon, the small meeting hall was alive again. Residents came one by one, women with notebooks, men with work-roughened hands, children chasing shadows on the wall. Madison set out chairs, poured tea, and explained calmly, "We'll confirm every name together. No hurry, no blame. We just want light." They went line by line. A few mix-ups turned out harmless, shared phone numbers, spelling mistakes, but 3 entries stood out. The same signature copied perfectly. "Someone added these," Yusuf whispered. Instead of anger, Madison smiled gently at the group. "If a name doesn't belong, it's like a shadow in sunlight," she said. "All we need to do is open the window." The community nodded. No shouting, no fear, just quiet agreement. When they finished, the true list was shorter but cleaner. That mattered more. The rumor late that evening. A message began spreading online. "The translator in the solar project handles money and payments." A simple sentence, half true, fully misleading. By morning, screenshots were everywhere. Salma called first. "Don't answer them," she said firmly. "We'll hold a public meeting today. You tell your story yourself." Madison exhaled. She remembered Sheikh Zayed's words. "You don't argue with a rumor, you starve it." "Then we'll feed the truth instead," she replied. The open forum, the courtyard behind the community hall filled with folding chairs. The foundation brought tea. The engineers brought diagrams. Even the local press came, curious to see the woman people were whispering about. Madison stepped forward. No stage, no spotlight, just her voice. "A message went around that I take payments," she began evenly. "That isn't true. I don't collect money. I collect questions and give answers back." She held up the verified list. "These are the real members. Checked together, signed by the people themselves." A man stood. "Then who made the false ones?" Madison looked him in the eye. "Someone who forgot that trust is worth more than profit." But we remembered. Applause broke out, not loud but sincere. Reporters tried to push their microphones closer, but the story unfolding wasn't scandal. It was teamwork. The camera caught faces, families, neighbors, workers, all defending something bigger than one person's name. When it ended, a small boy tugged her sleeve. "Miss Madison, can I draw a sun next to our names?" She smiled. "Yes. Draw one for all of us." He did. 2 uneven yellow circles that looked like hope learning to spell itself. Back at the hotel that evening, Madison returned to the Almaza Tower Hotel. Her locker was empty except for a folded note. "Please return your badge tomorrow morning." MR, she read it twice, then tucked it inside her notebook without a word. When she passed the manager at the lobby doors, she said only, "Good night, sir." "Please don't believe everything that whispers." He didn't reply, but something in his posture softened, the first crack in a wall of pride. The courtyard of light, next morning. Sheikh Zayed and his team arrived quietly at the community center. Instead of podiums, they brought more chairs and a large sheet of white paper taped to the wall. Across the top, in thick black ink, it read, "Check your name, add if missing." People lined up with pens. Madison helped them one by one. Names were written correctly, numbers fixed, mistakes erased. A television crew filmed, waiting for chaos, but found calm instead. A reporter finally asked, "Your Excellency, some say you use a worker as a symbol of humility. What do you say?" Zayed smiled faintly. "She isn't a symbol," he said. "She's part of the team. The project works because everyone speaks, not because one man listens." Then the microphone turned to Madison. "Do you feel used?" The reporter asked. She looked directly into the lens. "Every day I use my tools and a mop, a pen, a sentence," and she said, "Tools are for building, not breaking. That's all we're doing here, my building." The crowd applauded. The rumor finally lost its food. Peace after noise. That night, as she packed her few things, a new message lit her phone. "Training reinstated. Project continues. Thank you." MR, she smiled quietly. No revenge, no anger. Just balance restored. On her desk lay the Sheikh's notebook. She opened it to a blank page and wrote, "Dignity Rule 19. When lies appear, don't fight them with noise. Open the door, let the truth stand in sunlight, and keep working." She closed the book, turned off the light, and whispered, "Tomorrow, we build again." Outside, the city glowed, and for the first time in weeks, the shadows had nowhere left to hide, to shine. The next morning dawned bright and quiet over Dubai. The city shimmered in gold as if the sunlight itself was proud of what had survived the night's rumors. But peace, Madison had learned, is never the end of a story. It's the beginning of the next test. She arrived at the foundation office early, a cup of mint tea in her hand and determination in her eyes. The guards greeted her with respectful nods now. Everyone had heard what she'd done, standing up to the storm with calm truth instead of anger. On her desk waited a sealed folder marked, "Urgent, Site Evaluation, Coastal District." She opened it. Inside were inspection reports, 2 photos, and a simple note in elegant handwriting. "The next project will test everything we've built. Go see it yourself." "See," she smiled. The Sheikh didn't believe in comfort zones. He believed in growth, the kind that stretched you quietly until you became more than you were. A city beneath the heat. The drive to the coastal district took 3 hours. The desert slowly gave way to salt air and soft winds. Madison rolled down her window and let the scent of the sea wash through, a reminder that some things stay honest, no matter how many stories the world invents. Salma sat beside her, checking notes on a tablet. "This district has been waiting for solar units for 2 years, she said. "Old permits, delayed funding, and now, finally, is a chance to fix it." Madison nodded. "Then let's make sure we don't just install panels. Let's rebuild trust." When they reached the site, it was nothing like the glossy foundation brochures. Faded houses, fishermen mending nets under half-broken roofs, children running barefoot along dusty lanes that led straight to the shore. One man, tall and weathered, stepped forward. His name tag read Ferris, the local foreman. "We've heard many promises," he said, "but the wires never come. What makes this one different?" Madison didn't offer a speech. She offered honesty. "This one comes with people who'll stay to make sure it works," she said. "Including me." Ferris studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then let's see if sunlight can really power a village." A problem. Hidden in numbers over the next 2 days, Madison worked side by side with the engineers and locals. The sun was fierce, the hours long, but progress was visible. Gleaming panels rising above rooftops, wires carefully laid, and children cheering whenever the lights flickered on. But on the 3rd day, Yusuf called from the foundation's office. His voice was tight. "Madison, there's an issue. The delivery logs for your site don't match the foundation's records. According to our system, you've already received double the panels." Her brow furrowed. "That's impossible. We only got half the shipment." "I know," Yusuf replied, "but someone signed your name on the receipt." Madison froze. A forgery again, a shadow trying to stretch back into the sunlight. "Send me the signature copy," she said firmly. Minutes later, the image appeared on her phone. It was a neat signature, but too perfect, too stiff. Whoever wrote it had practiced carefully. Salma looked over her shoulder. "Someone wants to use your name again." Madison exhaled slowly. "Then we'll do what we always do, show the truth." The inspection, the next morning, 2 auditors from the ministry arrived unannounced, polite, professional, but skeptical. Their leader, a woman named Layla, greeted Madison with a formal smile. "We've had conflicting reports," Layla said. "We just need to confirm your deliveries and verify your documentation." Madison handed her the real logbook, handwritten, signed daily by the workers, with fingerprints from the crew who had helped. No fancy formatting, just real ink and calloused hands. Layla turned each page slowly. Her expression softened. "These are honest records," she said quietly. "The system report we received seems fabricated." She looked up. "Who had access to your file?" Madison paused. "Only me, Yusuf, and the logistics officer at headquarters." Layla nodded. "We'll check. But keep your copies safe." When the auditors left, Ferris approached with concern. "Someone's trying to ruin what you built." Madison smiled faintly. "Then they'll have to work harder than we do." She turned back to the crew. "Let's finish what we started." Power restored by sunset, the last wire was secured. When the main switch flipped, lights blinked on across the fishing village. One home, then another, then the whole row. Children shouted. Women laughed. For the first time, the streets glowed without generators roaring in the background. Madison stood in the middle of the lane, tears pricking her eyes. It wasn't just electricity. It was dignity. Ferris placed a calloused hand over his heart. "You kept your word. We will keep ours." At that moment, her phone buzzed. A message from Zayed. "I heard the village shines tonight. Some people build towers. You built light." She typed back, "Light only works when it's shared." The meeting of truth, 2 days later, Madison was called back to headquarters. She entered a quiet boardroom, Zayed, Khalid, Layla, and Yusuf already there. On the screen, an internal report showing who had forged her signature. It wasn't Rahman this time. It was a man from logistics, Adil, a former employee recommended by a third-party partner, secretly reselling surplus panels and covering it with fake paperwork. Zayed's tone was calm but cold. He confessed, said he used your name because it was trusted. He knew that if your signature appeared, no one would question it. Madison clasped her hands. "Then let's fix the system so that trust isn't abused." Zayed nodded. "Already in motion. But you should know, the ministry wants to interview you for verification." "I'll go," she said simply. "I've got nothing to hide." He smiled faintly. "That's why your voice matters. The interview." The government office was formal but welcoming. Layla sat beside her as she answered every question, clearly, calmly, respectfully. When it ended, the director leaned forward. "Miss Cole, you've shown exceptional honesty and skill. Dubai needs more people like you. Would you consider helping us train future interpreters and community liaisons?" Madison blinked, stunned. "I would be honored." "Then it's settled," he said. "Your work here doesn't end until it grows." Return to Almaza that evening. Madison returned to the Almaza Tower Hotel for the first time since her quiet dismissal. The staff looked up as she walked through the lobby. Not as a janitor this time, but as someone whose name had traveled far beyond those marble floors. Mr. Rahman stepped forward, humbled. "Miss Cole," he said softly, "I misjudged you. I believed rumors when I should have watched your actions." Madison's expression was kind. "We all make mistakes, sir. What matters is what we do next." He extended a fresh badge, this time gold instead of silver. "You're welcome here anytime." As guest or mentor, she accepted it with a small smile. "Then let's teach everyone here one new rule. Never underestimate quiet people." He nodded, eyes misting slightly. The foundation ceremony a week later. The Sheikh's Foundation hosted a small event, not a grand celebration, but a simple gathering of every worker, translator, engineer, and villager who helped bring light to the coastal district. No suits, no speeches, just gratitude. When Zayed spoke, he didn't talk about billions or technology. He talked about truth. "Machines can light homes," he said, "but honesty lights hearts. We can replace wires. We cannot replace trust." This woman reminded us that truth doesn't need armor. It only needs a voice. He gestured toward Madison. The applause that followed wasn't loud, but it was deep, the kind that feels like waves instead of thunder. She stepped up, smiling shyly. "Every name on our list belongs to a story," she said. "And every story matters. The light you see isn't from panels or wires. It's from people who refuse to give up. The crowd rose to their feet. Even Zayed clapped, his eyes bright with pride. Later that night, Madison sat on the balcony of her small apartment, the city glittering below. She opened the Sheikh's notebook, now filled with lessons, drawings, and rules written in her neat, careful hand. She turned to the last blank page and wrote, Dignity Rule Number 20. When truth stands in sunlight, even shadows bow. She closed the book and whispered into the breeze, Thank you, Father. The door you taught me to open. It stayed open. Her phone pinged again, a message from Zayed. Tomorrow we start the next phase, training new voices. Madison smiled at the horizon. The night sky was alive with light, stars, windows, and hope glowing together. The story wasn't ending. It was only learning how to shine brighter. ID. The desert morning rose in layers of gold and white, spilling through the glass walls of the Foundation's new training wing. The air smelled of new paint and cardamom. Rows of simple desks waited for their first students, a blend of local women, young engineers, and community liaisons from across the Emirates. At the front of the room stood Madison Cole, no longer in her hotel uniform, no longer holding a mop, but carrying the same humility that had carried her through every storm. Her new nameplate on the wall read, Lead Trainer, Community Language and Ethics Program. She smiled at it quietly. Titles were nice, but they weren't the goal. The goal was what she saw now, people eager to learn how to listen. A new kind of classroom. As the students gathered, Madison began with her favorite ritual, writing 3 words on the board. Stay, she turned to the group. These were the first lessons I taught hotel staff, she explained. See before you assume. Say what's true. Stay when others run from discomfort. A young trainee raised his hand. Miss Madison, how do you stay calm when someone doubts you, when you know you're right but they don't listen? Madison smiled gently. You breathe, she said, and you let the truth do the heavy lifting. Anger shouts. Truth waits, and waiting is stronger. The room was quiet, not from boredom but respect. It wasn't just training anymore. It was transformation. Return of the Sheikh by noon. A ripple of whispers spread through the classroom. He's here. Sheikh Zayed al-Rahman entered with Khalid, walking without ceremony. He paused near the back, watching the trainees as Madison continued her session. She didn't stop or change her tone. She just taught, as she always had, steady, patient, clear. When she finished, Zayed clapped softly. You see, he said to the trainees. That's how leadership looks, quiet but unshakable. Madison laughed lightly, and humble enough to remind me that my handwriting still leans too far left. The class chuckled. Zayed's smile deepened. Miss Cole, he said, we're expanding this program to other countries next year. But I have a question only you can answer. She tilted her head. What question, sir? How do we keep the heart in something that will soon become huge? Contracts, partnerships, politics. Madison thought for a moment, then picked up the marker and wrote a single sentence under the 3 words on the board. Always remember who the light is for. Silence followed. Then applause, gentle, sincere, lasting. Zayed nodded slowly. That will be our foundation rule. An unexpected letter. That evening, while reviewing paperwork, Salma brought an envelope to Madison's desk. The handwriting was unfamiliar. Elegant, careful, but hesitant. This arrived through the post, Salma said. No sender listed. Inside was a short letter. Miss Cole, I was wrong. I was part of the team that questioned your work months ago. I believed a rumor, not your record. I lost my position after the investigation, but I found something better. Humility. Watching you speak in that courtyard changed me. I start a new job next week, and I promise to lead with truth, not fear. Thank you. Layla from Logistics. Madison read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in the back of the Sheikh's notebook. Even shadows can learn where the light is, she murmured. A call from Ghana. That night she connected her solar-powered tablet, the gift the Sheikh had sent for her mother. Sarah Cole's smiling face appeared, framed by the warm lights of their home in Accra. My daughter, Sarah said proudly. I watched your speech on television. The entire church clapped when you said, truth waits. Madison laughed softly. You're still my biggest audience. And you're still my greatest example, her mother replied. Your father would be so proud. He always said you'd translate more than languages. You'd translate hearts. Madison blinked back emotion. He taught me well. And you taught the world, Sarah said. For a moment, both women were quiet, just two hearts connected through light. The Summit of Voices a month later, the Foundation hosted its first Voices of Unity Summit. Representatives from multiple countries arrived. Engineers, social workers, educators, translators. The goal wasn't money or contracts. It was understanding. Madison opened the event with a short speech that would later go viral for its message of unity. Every person you meet is a sentence in a language you haven't learned yet. Don't interrupt. Don't translate too fast. Listen first, because respect is the strongest bridge in any language. The audience rose to their feet. Reporters from 3 different countries quoted her line in their coverage the next day. But for Madison, the highlight wasn't the cameras or the applause. It was seeing 2 of her trainees interpreting for guests flawlessly. They were confident, respectful, and kind, carrying the same light forward. The gift of a notebook at the end of the summit. Sheikh Zayed approached Madison with a familiar brown leather notebook in his hands, the same one he'd once given her. "I believe this belongs to you," she said, smiling. "No," he said gently. "It belongs to the next student." He opened the first page. Her writing, the dignity rules, and filled most of it. He'd added one last note at the end. Rule number 21. True leaders clean problems the way janitors clean floors. Quietly, thoroughly, and every day. She read it, smiling through tears. "You kept my handwriting alive. You kept my foundation alive," he replied. The letter to the next Dreamer weeks later. When the training wing graduated its first class, Madison gathered everyone for one last message. She held up the notebook and spoke softly, her voice steady and warm. "This book doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to whoever needs it next. To anyone who's ever been told they're too small to make a difference. The truth is, small acts build big change. A mop can save a meeting, a word can save a project, and honesty can save a nation's heart." She handed the notebook to a young woman in the front row, a trainee from Kenya, whose eyes shone with the same courage Madison once had. "Keep writing," Madison said. "The world needs your version too." The light that stayed that evening long after everyone had left, Madison walked outside. The courtyard lights reflected across the glass walls like stars that had come down to rest. She looked up at the sky, the same sky her father once taught her to name in Arabic, the same sky her mother still watched from Ghana. She whispered. The light stayed, and somewhere across the world, a child flipped a switch in a small solar-lit house, smiling at the glow that filled the room. The circle was complete. The light had traveled from one heart to another, and it would keep going. Final message for narration. Sometimes life tests us not to expose our weaknesses, but to reveal the strength we didn't know we had. One voice can change a meeting. One act of honesty can change a city, and one humble heart can remind the world that light doesn't ask permission to shine.